The last customer stumbled out the door, and I let out a quiet sigh as I reached over to turn down the blaring music. The sudden shift from noise to near silence was a welcome relief. The hum of neon signs, the soft clinking of glasses, and the rhythmic motions of wiping down the bar filled the space. Another long night behind the counter had come to an end. For hours, I had poured drinks for faces that blurred together, people who wouldn't remember my name by morning. The dim red and blue glow from the beer signs stretched eerie shadows across the bar, making the empty stools look like slumped figures. Near the register, David, the owner, and my boss sat hunched over a stack of receipts, one hand rubbing his temple while the other flipped through paperwork. His exhaustion was plain to see, the weight of end-of-month numbers pressing heavily on his shoulders. "I can't drive you home tonight with all this paperwork I have to do," he muttered, motioning toward the mess in front of him. "You good to walk?" I hesitated. Something about the night felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was just the way the air felt unusually thick, or the strange stillness outside. But I had walked home plenty of times before. Pushing away the unease, I forced a smile. "Yeah, I'll be fine. It's a warm night, and the stars will look amazing." David grunted, focused on his paperwork. I sighed, tossing my rag onto the counter and grabbing my keys. "See you tomorrow, Dave," I called out. He waved me off without looking up. "Be safe." I grabbed my bag, gave David our usual fist bump, and stepped out into the night. The cool air wrapped around me as I took one last glance back at the bar to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything. My job at this small-town bar near Lake Harrow was perfect. It allowed me to sleep late, and best of all, my apartment was close enough to walk home. The shortcut I took was a back road that cut through open fields, with no houses in sight. It was completely deserted at this hour, just as I had expected. The only company I had was the endless sea of tall grass swaying on both sides of the road. The night sky was breathtaking, a deep velvety blue with a bright full moon hanging just above the horizon. A single wispy cloud drifted lazily past it. As I walked, the rhythmic crunch of my sneakers on the pavement blended with the chirping of crickets and the occasional rustle in the grass. The night was warm, thick with the lingering scent of wildflowers and damp earth. A gentle breeze carried the distant hum of a highway, the faint whoosh of cars barely audible over the sounds of nature. It was the kind of night that felt almost too quiet, too still. Then, without warning, everything changed. The chirping stopped, the rustling ceased, even the wind seemed to vanish, as if the world had been placed on mute. I froze mid-step, my breath caught in my throat. The silence pressed in around me, heavy and unnatural. I turned my head slowly, scanning my surroundings, my pulse hammering in my ears. That's when I saw it. Floating about 200 feet above the ground was a massive circular object, larger than a two-story house. It hovered without a sound, perfectly still. Its surface was impossibly smooth, with no seams or visible structure, as if it had been molded from a single piece of metal. I ran through a mental checklist of every aircraft I had ever seen: planes, helicopters, drones. But none of them matched what hovered above me. It was dead silent, eerily still despite its size. No propellers, no wings, no visible engines. Then, without warning, a beam of bluish-white light shot down from the craft, engulfing me. My body jerked involuntarily as I felt myself lift off the ground. Panic surged through me, and I instinctively raised my arms to shield my face from the blinding glow. My entire body tingled as if every nerve was being activated at once. I tried to scream, but my voice refused to work. I was completely paralyzed. My limbs wouldn't respond. I couldn't even blink. A strange mechanical hum filled the air, vibrating deep within my chest. It wasn't coming from the ship itself, but from the beam holding me in place. The sensation was unlike anything I had ever experienced, weightless yet crushing, freezing yet burning. As I was pulled closer to the craft, I could finally see it in detail. Its surface was impossibly smooth, as if it had been molded from a single piece of material. No seams, no rivets, no panels. Just an unbroken, metallic structure that pulsed with an eerie glow. The moment I crossed the threshold into the ship, the beam dimmed, and I dropped onto a smooth, cold floor. The walls glowed with the same strange white, purple, and green hues as the exterior, pulsating softly. The air smelled bizarre, a mix of burnt plastic, caramel, and something metallic. I floated slightly above the surface, unable to move. 4 beings drifted toward me. They weren't human. The one nearest to me leaned in, its large, almond-shaped black eyes locking onto mine. It had smooth gray skin, a tiny slit for a mouth, and 2 small holes for a nose. Its body was impossibly thin, clad in a tight, silver suit. I felt something in my Minda presence. A voice that wasn't a voice. Do not be afraid. The message wasn't spoken. It was placed inside my thoughts, like an echo bouncing through my skull. I struggled to move, to scream, but my body still refused to obey me. You will be returned. I wanted to believe it, but my panic only deepened as I was gently guided onto a metallic table. In a blink, my clothes were gone. My breath came in sharp gasps as I took in my surroundings. The room was small, sterile, and featureless. Then I noticed her. On another table beside me, a woman lay frozen in place, her eyes wide with terror. Tears streaked her pale cheeks. She wasn't alone. 4 of the beings hovered around her as well. One of them held something. My stomach twisted as I realized what it was: a baby. It was small, delicate, and still attached to its umbilical cord. The woman's silent screams were the most horrifying sight I had ever witnessed. I wanted to reach for her, to help, but I was utterly powerless. Before I could process anything else, a sudden, sharp pain shot through my spine. It was unlike any pain I had ever felt, deep, invasive, unbearable. My mouth opened in a soundless scream, my vision blurred with tears. Then, everything went black. A moment later, I was walking, not inside the ship, not on the metallic table. I was back on the road, halfway home. The night was still and eerily quiet. The crickets chirped in the distance, their rhythmic song filling the void. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the scent of damp earth and asphalt. My feet moved in a steady rhythm, my sneakers tapping against the pavement as if I had been walking this entire time, as if nothing had happened. A deep unease crept over me, slow and suffocating, like a shadow stretching over my mind. My limbs felt impossibly heavy, as though some unseen force had drained the strength from my body. My skin tingled with a sensation I couldn't place, pins and needles, but deeper, buzzing under the surface. My breath came in short, shallow bursts, my chest tightening with something I couldn't explain. When I finally reached my home, my hands were shaking so badly that I fumbled with my keys, nearly dropping them twice before forcing them into the lock. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside, shutting it firmly behind me. My body sagged against it as I exhaled, trying to steady myself. I stood there for a long moment, listening, half expecting someone, to be outside. But the night remained still, indifferent to my fear. I made my way to my bedroom in a daze, collapsing onto my bed. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the walk home over and over, searching for any clue, any moment that might explain it. But nothing made sense. The next morning, I considered telling my friend, but as soon as I opened my mouth, I hesitated. Who would believe me? That I had lost time, that the stars weren't where they should have been, that something had been taken from me? So I kept it to myself. And from that night on, I never walked alone after dark again.